elections, identity, culture change, and social justice. A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580.
On Israel's war against Hamas, Senator Bernie Sanders faces a backlash from the left. Some progressive activists are deeply disappointed in the Vermont senator, an icon of their movement, for failing to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. And Henry Kissinger, a statesman and celebrity diplomat who wielded unparalleled power over U.S. foreign policy throughout the administrations of Presidents Richard M. Nixon and Gerald Ford, and who for decades afterwards was a consultant and writer. He proffered opinions that shaped global politics and business. Henry Kissinger died November 29th at his home in Connecticut. He was 100 years old. And speaking at the 2023 Deal Book Summit in New York yesterday, Elon Musk, the owner of social media site X, formerly Twitter, scoffed at advertisers leaving the platform because of anti-Semitic posts he amplified there. He went on to say, if somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go F yourself. Go F yourself. Is that clear? This is Elon Musk talking, and he singled out Disney CEO Bob Iger in the audience saying, "Hi, Bob." And Ron DeSantis and Gavin Newsom, two ambitious governors, are going to get the spotlight tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on Fox News because they are going to participate in a nationally televised debate. Now, Gavin Newsom is not on the ballot in 2024, and Ron DeSantis is hoping to be on the ballot, but he has a long ways to go to defeat Donald Trump for the top spot on the GOP ticket. And in a memoir to be published next week, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney is telling it all. She's telling the tea. She's spilling the tea. She describes how Republicans berated her, how her family lost friends, and how she forged an unusual alliance with the Democratic Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. But beyond its top line arguments, the book does offer a rare peek inside the Republican cloakroom and what Miss Cheney called, the place where you could hear the real truth about how most GOP members felt about Donald Trump. She includes some pretty direct statements from her colleagues, including one who she says referred to Donald Trump as the Orange Jesus. Again, that book is out next week. And Kenneth Chesebro, one of Trump's co-defendants in the Georgia election interference case, well, former co-defendant, because Kenneth Chesebro pled guilty to the charges filed against him in Georgia, but now he's going to participate in investigations taking place around the January 6th insurrection in Nevada and Arizona. I'm going to keep a close eye on that to see what information Chesebro may be able to give to those investigators that could prove harmful to Donald Trump and might lead to yet additional criminal charges being filed. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. This is hour 2 of Areva Martin in real time, and this is the hour where we go deep and we dig and we bring you those stories that people are talking about. And this is a heartbreaking story today. We're talking about hate crime. And no, it's not an anti-Semitic crime. It's not an Islamophobic crime. So it's not the hate crimes that have been in the news lately since the October 7th attack. And yes, anti-Semitism is wrong. And people who spread anti-Semitic comments and, make other kinds of attacks on Jewish people simply because they are Jewish should be punished and held accountable. Likewise, attacking someone just because they are a Muslim, using racial slurs, using offensive slurs towards Muslims is wrong. We've seen people actually killed in Vermont and in Chicago simply because people hate Muslims. They've been taught to hate Muslims. All of that is wrong. But equally wrong is the everyday, pervasive, prevalent hate that we see towards Black folks. And it doesn't draw necessarily the kinds of headlines. It doesn't get the kind of attention that we've seen around some of these other hate crimes and hate speech. Now, I'm not one to compare misery and pain to try to say the pain of Black folks is more significant or the misery of Black folks is more significant, or being anti-Black, we should compare that to being anti-Jewish or anti-Muslim. That's not my deal. I don't do that. And that's not what we are doing today in this hour. But what we are doing is lifting up a story about a 15-year-old Black girl who's at her school, who's attacked by a white kid who is yelling the N-word, it's caught on video, and really want to lift up the fact that Black folks suffer those kinds of egregious racial attacks every day in this country. And we want folks to know that it's happening, and we want to talk about what we can do to sensitize people to how pervasive and prevalent it is. So when we come forward, more on this horrifying story of the 15-year-old student at Shawnee Mission East High School in Prairie Village, Kansas. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities and sports figures, elected leaders and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
We boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
In a shocking hate crime at Shawnee Mission East High School, and this is in Kansas City, a Black girl and student was viciously attacked by a white male student. The assault left her hospitalized with a broken nose, and in a disturbing turn of events, the victim, the Black student, was actually suspended from school. Now, we have learned some of the details about this story, some of which are pretty shocking. And we've learned these details because the editor and founder of the Kansas City Defender, Ryan Sorrell, broke the story. I'm so happy he's joining us here today to give us all of those details. And also Professor David Eichard, good friend of the show, is here. He's a professor of African American Studies at Vanderbilt. Wanted to have both of you on. Obviously, Ryan, for you to break this story down to us, and Professor Eichard, for you to help us understand how these kinds of attacks against Black folks are so pervasive and prevalent, so much so that they barely even make the news anymore. So thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Professor Eichard, for joining me in this hour. I want to start with you, Ryan. Just give us the details of what happened. And again, thank you for covering this in your local press, because I just feel like these kinds of stories don't get enough attention in the national media.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you all so much for inviting me onto the show. This incident actually took place last week, even though the news came out this week, but the incident took place last week when a 15-year-old Black girl at Shawnee Mission East High School confronted a white girl who had been calling Black students the N-word, and she was also calling them slaves. And so Bree truly courageously and non-violently confronted this white student in the hallway and was asking her, did you say these things? Why would you say these things? And the girl was kind of trying to deny that she said it, even though there were multiple witnesses when she had said these things. And so eventually Bree and the white girl kind of just walk away from each other, and they're walking to opposite ends of the hallway. And there's a white male student who essentially just yells all the way down the hallway and tells Bree to shut the F up. And Bree turns around and says, who said that? And this white kid says, me, N-word, me, and then begins to charge at Bree and pushes her violently. And then essentially a brawl kind of breaks out, and then he ends up really just violently assaulting her and ultimately breaking her nose and hospitalizing her and traumatizing her. And there has certainly been a lot of outrage from the community here. I actually just right now returned from a protest that the students from that school, as well as the Black Student Solidarity Network, which is a coalition of Black students from across numerous schools across Missouri and Kansas who have been victims of hate crimes like this. They came together and have organized across schools and across school districts to organize a protest today. But there has definitely been a major response in our community to this.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for your coverage of this and bringing us up to speed in terms of the protest, because I had read that there had been a protest from some of the students at the high school that then actually there was a walkout with students were holding signs that said, protect Black women and protect students of color. Did you cover that walkout of the students at Shawnee Mission East?
We did, yes. Yeah, we really a lot of our reporting comes directly from students, and they just send us information as it's happening because we're a very small team. And so oftentimes these students will actually be really our reporters from inside of their school. That's how we broke the story in the first place. And so we were able to cover that walkout that way because they were sending us video and photos as it was happening.
So I want to give kudos to my producer, Avi Bernard, for finding you and finding this story. I hadn't read about it. I read a gazillion newspapers every day throughout the day. Has this story been covered in the what I'll call the mainstream press in Kansas?
It's been covered by, I would say, the majority of the legacy, the white news outlets, local news outlets in the area. I know that the Daily Beast is also covering it. I believe the Daily Mail has also covered it, but I don't think that it's been covered by a lot of the other major news outlets yet.
And so I would bring you in the conversation, Dr. Eichard. When you hear about these stories, I don't know, is it the fact that stories against Black folks like this, these kinds of vicious attacks, physical attacks, verbal attacks, is it that they are so pervasive? Is that why we don't hear more about them? Because right now in this country, we hear every day major stories about anti-Semitism that's happening on college campuses, Islamophobia that's rampant. But this is classic hate towards a Black student. And yet we had to go digging deep in California to find this story in Kansas City.
It's first of all, thanks for having me on your show. It's always an enlightening and illuminating experience, because you certainly don't mince your words, and you always are bringing us a fresh, informed perspective on things that a lot of times don't get the type of attention, the critical attention, national attention that they warrant. So I want to first
thank you
say that. But I think one of the reasons is that for so long, and continuing to this very moment, Black folks have been the scapegoat of white America when it comes to morality, when it comes to education, when it comes to healthcare. We're the boogeyman of America. Ralph Ellison once wrote that when white immigrants, one of the first words that they learn when they come to America is nigger, because it makes them feel instantly American, right? Pretty provocative, right? A statement, but there's a lot of truth to that statement. And I want to kind of even further contextualize that in terms of what we just witnessed with this violent assault, because I saw it for the first time when you guys sent me the link, and I was just kind of stunned at, this white kid is, at least 30 to 40 pounds heavier. He is in fact a man. He's standing over this young woman's head by 4 or 5 inches. Mm-hmm. And he comes in prepared to do physical violence. It's very clear from her interactions with these earlier students that she's being verbal. She's not mincing her words. She's not backing down, but she's not being physical. She's not threatening in any kind of physical way. She's not saying that she's going to hit anybody. She's trying to hold people verbally accountable. And when he enters the fray, he enters it with a very intentional, violent intent, right? Mm-hmm. And it's striking that when he pushes her and initiates the violence and she defends herself, whenever, again, this is a big dude who's swinging at this young woman who is at least 30 pounds smaller, 5 or 6 inches shorter, and a woman, right? And after they pull him away, he's screaming, well, she hit me first, right? When clearly you have the video in which he's the one that ran up on her and pushed her and started the whole kind of, right, violent altercation. And I find that to be striking, that in the midst of the violence that he invited, his reflex is to somehow blame her for what he just did to her.
Right.
Right? Now, if we were to take the same scenario and that little Black girl is replaced by a white girl, and that dude that ran up on her is a Black dude, this is all over the press. Mm-hmm. They're talking about throwing this dude in jail. Mm-hmm. They're talking about he's an animal. How could he be striking this innocent girl who raised this monster, put the handcuffs on him, throw away the key. Everybody, you got politicians. Biden would be having an emergency press conference talking about school violence and how we have to address this, right? If you change the bodies of these actors in this, right, these agents here, the response would be radically different. And that right there should tell you all you need to know about what's going on here in this particular scenario, and how our country decides who is a true victim worthy of protection and who is not.
Yeah, and that's such great points, Professor. And Ryan, I do want to ask you, since you guys have covered this, you interviewed, I presume, witnesses. Are the witness stories consistent that Bree did not attack this white kid, that she did confront, as you said, she did use her words, as the professor said, but she did not strike at him, that he was the aggressor? Is that confirmed, Ryan, from the interviews that you have done or your newspaper has done?
Yes, absolutely. We've interviewed Bree herself. We've spoken with the young woman who was filming the violent incident. We spoke to her best friend, who is the one who's been organizing these protests on her behalf, who was also present that day. And all of them have the same story, essentially. And they have said that they had actually tried to report that same white student on multiple occasions to the administration, and that the administration did not act on it. So this was not the first time with this specific student, which that specific student also has 2 or 3 prior violent charges against him. And so these students have been saying that he was a threat to them. And we also just published on our Instagram page yesterday, where we do a lot of our publishing at, we published an audio clip that he sent to his friends that they leaked to us, where he said he wanted to go back up to the school and he would put hands on anybody who had anything to say about it. And he used the N-word again. And this was all after he had already been suspended. This was after the incident. He said he wanted to go back up to the school again. And so I think that this is really violent negligence on behalf of the school. And even at this point where we have the videos and we can see with our own eyes what happened, the school is still, in their responses to parents, they're sending out emails saying, don't believe the misinformation that you see on social media, and really trying to downplay it.
I'm sorry, if you know, what misinformation is out there that the school is making reference to?
Honestly, I'm not even sure, because the school to this point, in none of their statements have they directly condemned what took place. Essentially, all they're saying is we are going through a process. We condemn racism. All students should feel safe at school, but they're not condemning the specific hate crime that took place in their hallways that day.
Have you had a chance to interview any of the school personnel? Will they give statements or talk to you, or any reporters?
Yeah, they're not talking, to my knowledge, they're not talking to any reporters. They also haven't spoken extensively beyond their statements, even to the Kansas City Star, which is the largest newspaper here in the city. They pretty much just put out their statement, and they're also releasing statements to the parents in their community.
What do you know about this suspension? I think that's the part of the story that's troubling. When we look at the video, as the professor said, it's pretty clear that she was charged, that this white male student charged Bree, and he is the aggressor. So what is she being suspended for? Do you know that? Has anyone been able to share that with you?
I spoke with her parents tonight, and I'm going to be talking more extensively with them tomorrow. I don't know exactly what, and the school won't say, actually, for allegedly for privacy reasons. They're not giving any information whatsoever on why both students were suspended. But what we do know is that it's in relation to the zero tolerance rule, which a lot of these schools have, where regardless of if you're the aggressor or if you're the victim, if you are involved in a fight whatsoever, which that's actually one of the demands that the students in the Black Student Solidarity Network, they have 6 demands that they've made, and they want a change, an alteration to the zero tolerance rule, and an exception to include when hate speech is used, and for Black students to be able to defend themselves. So yeah,
I'm glad that that's a demand, but that sounds, and I understand that school personnel, their job is to keep all these kids safe, and it's a very difficult thing to do in a high school. But to have a policy that says if a student charges you and hits you, is the policy such that you're supposed to do nothing? Or you risk suspension? Is that the policy?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, and what, not only this case, we covered another case last year with a Black student named TJ, who again defended himself. But if you defend yourself and you are involved, if you don't walk away or actively immediately just try to run away from the situation. If you engage in the situation, then from what we have covered, as long as we've been a news outlet, then both students will be charged and oftentimes suspended or expelled.
Yeah, very interesting policy to say the least. Professor, let's go to this N-word. This kid is caught on a camera, audio, video, using the N-word towards Bree. Then he is so bold. He is so arrogant. He has so much hubris. There is a audio of him saying, I'll go back up there and lay hands on anybody that has anything to say about me, you N-word. So the reporting is that, and Ryan can correct me if I'm wrong, that he has been arrested, he's been charged, and he is going to face some accountability in the criminal court system, probably his age, the juvenile court system, but he is going to be facing some kind of consequences. And he has himself been suspended from school, which is, should go without saying, particularly now that we're hearing from Ryan that he has a history of violence, a history of being involved in other altercations. Obviously, we don't have any we don't have any factual basis for that. We're listening to Ryan, and I take you at your word, Ryan. I haven't researched that on my own. But Professor, when we come forward, I want to ask you about where is all of this hubris coming from with respect to calling Black people what they know to be a derogatory racial slur? Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to the Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on the Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union, weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, that's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way Black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities and sports figures, elected leaders and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
We boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader. If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook.
We are back, and in this hour, we are covering the racist attack against a 15-year-old Black female student at Shawnee Mission East High School in Kansas City, and the reporter and editor who broke that story, Ryan Sorrell of the Kansas City Defender, is joining us, as well as Black History Professor David Icard. So, Professor Icard, the number of times that this white male student used the N-word on the video that you and I watched that was filmed by Bree's friend, and now Ryan telling us there is an audio on his Instagram page of this same young man, presumably, using the N-word, threatening to go back up to the school, threatening anyone that would dare challenge him. Where are we in this country that he would feel so empowered, so emboldened to use that word in plain sight, knowing that someone was likely to record it, and then after this whole incident blows up to then use it again? So obviously this is something this is in his daily vocabulary. Let's be clear about that. This is not something that he just came to a week ago. But what is happening in our country that a young kid like that would feel so emboldened?
Well, again, kudos to Brother Ryan for getting in there and getting this story out and getting the voices and the perspective of people who often are left out of these particular kind of stories, where we only end up getting kind of one side that kind of props up, people who are tend to get the benefit of the doubt because they are white in a white supremacist society. I mean, let's just say that what it is. And it's important that, there are, we have video. It's important that we have personal account. And it's important that, this kind of other investigation that the brother has done, particularly the one talking about a history of this type of behavior on this young man's behalf that went unaddressed by the school administration. One of the things that we know is that Black students, both male, both the women and the men, the boys and the girls, statistically are punished at much higher rates and harsher for the same disciplinary actions that their white peers are engaged in. Like, we know that there's been many studies to demonstrate a stark difference in how disciplinary punishment is meted out, and it is a radically raced discourse. The other thing is also the inadequacy of the administration to identify the abuse that is the language. Again, if there was, I'm not trying to engage, as I think as Areva said earlier, in some kind of oppression Olympics. But the reality of this is, if we were talking about a situation where there was some anti-Semitic slurs, something of this sort that were used here, there would be a very different type of response. And to be clear, that there should be a response when any type of group is belittling another group. So the issue is not whether or not, this one group that's being marginalized is getting affirmed and another group isn't. Everybody who is being assaulted in a hate crime discourse should get serious attention. And the crime of the verbal assault and the abuse should be treated in the same way that physical assault is. So the fact that this young woman has to herself take it upon herself to engage with this, first of all, this woman student, to say you're using hate speech, right? And it sounds like from what the brother has told us earlier, that these things have been reported to the administration. So because the administration has failed to address what the students has brought to it, then the students then feel compelled to have to address this on their own, because they're having to deal with this daily abuse, right, by these students, who then, because their behavior is not being policed by the administration, feel emboldened to continue to use that. The fact that what we're talking about here now is a situation after it has escalated into this physical violence, and the woman who was using the racial slurs that was reported has, from my knowledge, unless again there has been some materializing of issues that has not been reported, she seems to have gotten away scot-free, right?
That's a good question. Let's ask Ryan. What happened to that person? Do you know, Ryan? The person that Bree was saying, you've been engaged in this negative conduct using racial slurs. What happened with her?
To my knowledge, nothing at all.
Mm-hmm. And to your knowledge, had reports been made to the administration by Black students that white students were using racial slurs towards them?
Yes. Yeah, and I'll go ahead.
I was going to say, what had the school's response been?
To my knowledge, it's just something completely inadequate. Students said that it's swept under the rug, or that the administration will say that they're going to do something and nothing is ever done about it. It's never addressed. And so ultimately that's, I think, what enables or allows or causes for these events to escalate into what happened.
Yeah, I want to ask you, Ryan, if you've heard this, and you too, Professor. I'm a civil rights lawyer, and I've been talking to, it's so ironic that this happened, because I've been in conversations with multiple parents, kids ranging from elementary to high school, or who in California right now are experiencing something very similar. And in some of these cases, Black kids in all white schools or Black kids in mixed schools, but predominantly white. And there's this phenomenon going around, I'm being told by these parents, where the school administrators are frustrated, say they don't know what to do, because when they interview the kids say, the white kids say the Black kids have given them permission to use the N-word, that it's a hip thing. And if they use it with the last vowel being A versus E, I don't know, somehow it's acceptable. And this pervasive kind of attacks on Black students is going unchecked. And what the parents are hearing is pretty much what you said, Ryan. The schools say they don't really know what to do. And so because they don't, quote unquote, know what to do, they're doing very little to nothing. And then something like this happens. But have you heard that, Ryan, where someone has said that a white kid was given permission by a Black kid to use the N-word?
Yeah, I mean, I personally went to a predominantly white, I grew up in a white suburb here in Kansas City. And I mean, certain Black kids, if you ask me, ones who don't have much sense, are the ones who give some of these white kids like the pass to say the N-word. I think that's been happening since I was in school and even before then. But I think in these specific cases, I don't find that to be an excuse whatsoever for the administration, because whether it's this case or the dozens of other cases very similar or identical to this case that we have covered, the students, the Black students themselves, have very intentionally tried to take intentional steps to the administration and tried to go all of the proper routes. And ultimately, the administration has not effectively handled it. And that's what leads to what we saw in the video.
No, absolutely. And categorically, Black kids cannot give white kids permission to defame and demean them. And categorically, these school districts around the country are not doing enough to keep Black kids safe. And it is absolutely no excuse for them to say to a parent, a Black parent, well, Black kids gave these white kids permission. These white administrators, school administrators, no matter what color they are, know that that is absolutely positively unacceptable. And they know the kind of pain and trauma associated with that word. So for them to even suggest that they are somehow absolved of their responsibility because of something that a 10-year-old said to another 10-year-old is absurd. And we wouldn't hear that in any other context. Well, you know, little Jimmy told me to bring a gun and shoot the school up, and the school says, well, that's okay because the kid gave him permission to do it. So it's a ridiculous response.
It's the logics of white supremacy.
Yes.
I mean,
hold that thought, Professor. When we come forward, I want you to break it down for us as only you can do. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union, weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, that's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way Black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities and sports figures, elected leaders and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time when you want it.
We are back with Ryan Sorrell, who is the editor and founder of the Kansas City Defender, and Vanderbilt University professor David Eichard. And Professor Eichard, I want you to really help us understand this whole concept that schools are in some situations relying on as a pass when their Black students allegedly give their white students the pass, as we call it, to use the N-word. And before you do that, I just want to give Ryan, I want to really acknowledge what Ryan has done here. Ryan is a very young man, 28 years old, who has started this digital outlet to bring to light these kinds of stories. And his outlet actually broke the story on the horrific shooting of Ralph Yarl. We know that was the kid that knocked on the wrong door and was shot because he was just knocking on the door. So because of that kind of grassroots journalism and being unapologetically Black and wanting to share Black stories, that's the reason that this story now about this 15-year-old girl is starting to get some traction in more legacy or mainstream media. So congratulations again to you, Ryan. And I couldn't be more pleased to have the esteemed David Eichard here to help us understand what is happening around these issues of race in our schools. So you were going to tell us about the white supremacy pass, or this issue of a pass, Professor Eichard.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of what Saidiya Hartman has said in her book "Lose Your Mother," and she said we shouldn't presume either the ignorance or the innocence of our white peers, right? In other words, right, the same kind of logic that applies to everyday situations for them should not somehow be abandoned when it applies to us. So, for example, if somehow I have some woman in my life that says it's okay for me to call her the B word, I would not then go into my workspace and just assume because that, like she said, it was okay for me to say it to her, that I could just randomly call my boss, my other colleagues, the B word. Like, I wouldn't just make that logic. Oh, this is okay for me in this kind of playful way to say that. So I could just this translates into every space that I go. That is absurd. Mm-hmm. It's simply absurd. If your Jewish friend, if somebody else said, "Oh, it's okay for you to use this particular slur when it's okay for me," I don't know of anybody that would be like, "Oh, I'm going to go and call the president of a university. I'm going to call my colleagues the same slur because, right, my friend over here said that it's okay. I suddenly have a license to be racist to Jews, a license to be racist to Arabs. I have a license to be racist to Mexicans," or right? Like, that particular logic is absurd. Mm-hmm. And it's only not absurd when it comes to anti-Blackness. It is only not absurd when it applies to Black people. Mm-hmm. Again, This story would be radically different if instead of a black girl that was assaulted by a big white boy, it was a white girl that was assaulted by a big black boy, right? This would be headline news. Nobody would be talking about, I don't think, he knew it was inappropriate to call her the B word before he punched her. I just think that maybe he was confused about when it was appropriate to you. They would be calling for his head.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to hold people accountable to what they know. And what I would argue is not to even engage in the absurdity of that logic.
Oh, absolutely. One thing that really upsets me, Professor, about that is some of the parents who have come to me personally to express similar things happening to their kids is if you are an administrator and someone tells you that you have a problem in your school, you have done a horrible job of educating these students about the pain and the history of anti-Blackness in this country, whether it's with the Black students or the white students, and you need to be calling into your office those Black students and white students, giving them an education about what that word means and how derogatory it is, because you start there. And then I have parents telling me that they're posting pictures of monkey faces with their kid's body on TikTok and other social media platforms. So it doesn't just end with some kind of permission to use the N-word. It does escalate. And in the case of Bree, into a physical altercation. And in the case of those shoppers in Buffalo, New York, into actually being, gunned down, losing their lives by a white supremacist who hated Black people. So this notion that schools somehow can hide behind, some comment made by a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old is very troubling. Ryan, let me ask you, what's the racial make of the school and then of the city?
I'm not sure of the school. My guess would be like around 5% is what my guess of Black people, but I'm not certain on that.
And what about the city? It's a small town, right? Outside of Kansas City?
Yeah, Shawnee Mission, it's definitely also very white. It's close to another city called Olathe. All of these, pretty much any of these suburbs outside of the Kansas City area are largely predominantly white places.
And I'm reading in the news that the young man has been arrested and charged with some kind of assault charge. Now, did that happen after the protest or was he immediately charged? Do you know?
That happened, I believe, after their walkout that they did, which was on like Monday or Tuesday. I believe it happened after that, but before this most recent protest.
Mm-hmm. And so where does the story stand now? He's been arrested. Do you know if he's in custody or he's been let out? Do you know if he was ever in custody?
I believe he's been released now.
Okay.
The students, I would actually like to just read off a few of the demands from the
please share them.
Black Student Solidarity Network, because I think that they're very powerful. But the first one says that they want a formal apology and admission of wrongdoing. It says the first demand is for a formal public apology from Shawnee Mission East High School, acknowledging their error in suspending Bree, who was a victim of a hate crime. This action highlights the broader issue of failure to protect Black students in the face of racial violence. Number two, to an immediate expulsion of the racist attacker. The protesters, we demand the immediate and permanent expulsion of the student responsible for the attack. This demand underscores the zero tolerance approach towards racially motivated violence in educational institutions. Number three, revision of the zero tolerance policy, which is what I was mentioning earlier that they want. They urge a revision of the zero tolerance policy, advocating for the rights of Black students to defend themselves against racial hate speech without facing unfair punishment. Number four, they want mandatory cultural competency for administrators. A call for mandatory cultural competency exams for all administrators. Failure to pass these exams should result in dismissal, ensuring that those in power are equipped to create and maintain a safe, inclusive environment. Number five, they want implementation of 12 recommendations that were proposed in 2020. And then the last one is they want transparent accountability measures to establish clear, transparent measures to hold students and staff accountable for racist behavior, including public reporting of incidents and subsequent actions. So I think I just wanted to bring that up because these students are much further along, at least, than what people, when I was in high school, we didn't have demands that were that, far along.
Coherent and that powerful. You're right. We got to give these students, Dr. Eichhardt, a lot of credit. These are high school students coming together in a nonviolent way, saying we want to be respected. We want our spaces to be respected. We want our bodies to be respected. And we want the adults in the room to do something. We're running out of time, but Dr. Eichhardt, give us some words of encouragement about, how we as a country are going to move forward. And hopefully one day we won't have to do this work.
Yeah, I wish I could say one day we wouldn't have to do this work, but I certainly find encouragement, and I'm glad our young brother there who's doing all this important work took the time to really read what these young people have put together. The youth are guiding the way. They've always guided the way, whether we're talking about the Black Power movement, civil rights movement, Black feminist movement. It's always the young people. They're fearless. They have a fierce belief in justice. They're tireless, and they're energetic. And so when you see them on the front lines, being able to articulate in the ways very clear and concise and compelling what they need in order to be treated as the citizens they are, that's a lot of optimism for the future, because they are our future. So to see them respond in this politically responsible way, galvanize their power and their numbers to make their voices heard, I think we should take a sense of pride and optimism from that.
Great words to close us out on. Thank you, Dr. Eichhardt. Always glad to be in places and spaces with you. Your brilliance is much appreciated. And Ryan Sorrell, keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir, brother. Keep doing that work. That's important.
Yes, keep doing it. We appreciate you. We see you, and anything we can do to lift you up, we are here for you. And this is such an important story, and we can't wait to follow you to see how it ends. And our best to Bree and her family. She should not be suspended from school. Hopefully she gets back into the classroom and continues and gets the help that she needs to recover from this kind of trauma. Again, thank you so much for your work. All right, the next voice that you hear is Robin Ayers and a Raw Report right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.